By now, you've probably heard about, or maybe even you've been the victim of a so-called fact checker online shutting you down on your social media page for posting anything related to election fraud in the 2020 presidential election. You know what I'm talking about. They're not going to allow just a little bit. It doesn't matter if you just put a question out there. Hey, was the 2020 election rigged? Question mark? Gone. Because these little brainwashed progressive sheep that work at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram believe the Democrats' narrative that the 2020 election was the most secure election in our history. Yeah, right, my... Now, that's just you. And it's happened to me. Now, imagine if you're the film producer who produces a film about this corruption. You're trying to advertise it to the masses so everyone can see the truth about the election. What do you think the fact checkers would do to you then? Well, you're about to find out from the man himself, who's at the center of all the controversy over the last few weeks. I'm, of course, speaking about this brand new documentary film, 2,000 Mules by DINESH D'SOUZA, which, in my opinion, exposes even more truth about the corruption in the 2020 presidential election. Yes, I said it. Where are you at, Fox? Where are you at, Newsmax? The D'Souza family, the nonprofit group True the Vote, worked tirelessly to expose how the 2020 election was rigged by using mules who dumped thousands of ballots at hundreds of drop boxes in several key battleground states, enough to swing the election in Biden's favor. If you haven't seen the movie yet, what are you waiting on? Before we bring Dinesh out, here's a quick peek.
I've been working with Greg Phillips. He has a deep background in election intelligence.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do. We identified in Atlanta 242 mules that went to an average of 24 drop boxes. But Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog. Bad backgrounds, bad reputations. They are interested in one thing, that's money.
And in no shape, in no way, in no time is that legal.
This is organized crime.
Do you have video evidence?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
Wow. Now, one of Dinesh's latest tweets about all of this was some good news, actually. Even though they've been trying to censor him, shut him down at movie theaters, not let him tweet about this, but he got a tweet out. By popular demand, 2,000 Mules is back in theaters. Over 400 theaters have announced 4 showings a day starting May 20th. That's awesome. That's this weekend, folks. There's the website you can go to. You can connect also at Fandango to buy your tickets. Let's get our groups and friends together and crush it this weekend. Let's welcome Dinesh to the program. Dinesh, had your wonderful daughter on yesterday. We talked about the wacko baby killers, as I call them, and what's happening, of course, with the SCOTUS brief. And then we touched on the film, and I applauded her and you and Debbie and the whole family, Catherine Engelbrecht, Greg, your investigators. Watching this at Mar-a-Lago with you guys 2 weeks ago in that room filled of patriots and conservatives that believe the election was fraudulent, it opened my eyes up to more. I mean, we'd already seen so much, right, Dinesh? And then you bring out this evidence of geo-tracking of phones, which we know the government uses down to a T. They can find you in a room in a house, along with state-run camera evidence connecting those little blue dots as the mules ran around dumping their ballots. How can people argue this?
Well, it's really hard to argue because when you look at what the fact checkers are saying, it doesn't really square with what's in the film. So they'll say things like, well, you know, in Georgia, people are allowed to return ballots for their family members. Now, that's true. But if you're returning ballots for your family members, why would you go to more than one drop box? You'd go to one, you drop them off, you'd go home.
Right.
We're looking at mules that went to a minimum of 10 drop boxes. And as you know, if you've seen the video and the film, typically it's in the middle of the night. It's wearing gloves to avoid fingerprints. It's taking photos of the ballots going in to get paid. So anyone who sees the film will realize that this criticism is just downright nonsensical. It doesn't square with what your own two eyes are showing you in the movie.
Yeah, and I've seen those fact checkers, and I'll just point some holes in what they've been trying to fact check you on. Like, for instance, you just said they have gloves on. They, of course, are going to say it was during COVID. Well, folks, when you watch the movie, you're going to see these mules drop them in, and we're talking stacks of them, then take the gloves off and throw them in the trash can next to the ballot box and drive away. So it wasn't for COVID.
Well, not to mention the fact that in the early voting and even on election day, the mules weren't wearing gloves. But there was an indictment that came down in Arizona in December in which the FBI was able to bust some ballot stuffers because they got fingerprints off the ballots. And right away, the word went out to the mules, start wearing gloves so you don't leave any fingerprints. So when you look at that level of detail, this is the kind of, you can always argue with this piece of evidence or that piece of evidence. The strength of the movie is in putting it all together to produce a emotionally and intellectually overwhelming case.
Now, let's go into the cash, because to pull something like this off, you need a lot of money. And you had an undercover ballot stuffer in the movie talk about it. They were getting, I think, $10 a ballot. So if a ballot stuffer hit 20, 30 stops at 5 to 10 ballots in each hand, they did it for a couple nights, they made a few $1,000s. Now, please explain to the viewers, Dinesh, how they were able to track the money, because everybody wants to know where Zuckerberg's, $430 million went. Didn't it go to a bunch of non-profit groups that said they were going to get the vote out and tell them where those mules kept going back to? This is the part I love.
So Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, put in, well, almost $500 million. And they weren't the only ones. Other people put money in too. A lot of these tech moguls operate through a group called the Silicon Valley Foundation. Why? Because the Silicon Valley Foundation will do exactly what these people say, and yet it's not going to be pegged to Jack Dorsey. It's not going to be pegged to Zuckerberg. It seems like the foundation is doing it. They're not doing it.
Right.
So they escape political accountability. Now, what Zuckerberg did is he went to these states and local governments and he said, listen, I have a lot of money and I'm willing to give you a bunch of it, but you need to let my people into your offices to run the election from the inside. He was actually infiltrating election offices in places like Wisconsin. The other thing that he did was he set up conditions, lots of mail-in ballots and lots of mail-in drop boxes. So it wasn't that the cities and the counties wanted the drop boxes and Zuckerberg gallantly said, I'll pay. That's the way it was reported. Zuckerberg used his leverage. I mean, think about it. Private citizen is using his leverage to dictate the way elections are run in various cities and counties across the country. It's really unbelievable. I'm not saying he knew about the mules,
right.
But I'm saying by paying for the drop boxes, he facilitated the mule operation. Without the drop boxes, the mules would have no place to go to.
Yeah. So you heard that, folks. So the money that went to these nonprofits that were going to get the vote out for every American, not a certain political party. Yeah, right. Some of the addresses on where some of the cash got donated to are the same addresses the little blue dots on the geo-tracking, the mules, went back to pick up more ballots, folks. Again, connect the dots. The cash paid for this from social media guys like Zuckerberg. They hired these mules. In a lot of cases, the mules were folks that were really poor. Some, I think, were even close to being homeless. Like, they knew who to target, right? Single moms needing money, poor people, drug addicts. They give them the cash, $10 a ballot, and then they go all around these districts. Just watch the movie. I'm giving too much away. But people, please do yourself a favor. Dinesh has pushed and pushed and pushed. He's got it in 400 more theaters now because people are waking up to this. So put the website up. If you want to find out where to go see it, like he said in his tweet, you can check Fandango. The website's 2000mules.com. And Dinesh, to me, you're an American patriot, but also a hero for having the guts to do this film and stand behind it, because people need to know the damn truth about the 2020 election. So thank you, Dinesh.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we're looking for a big weekend because, quite frankly, if we do well this weekend, opening weekend, we'll be in even more theaters next week.
And I'm hoping after you, because it's a business, you got to make your money back. I know that you've been speaking with the folks here at OAN, and in the future, down the road, after the movie theater release, theatrical release, hopefully we can air it here on OAN as well. I would love it if we could show it on this network.
That would be huge. Well, we'll certainly talk about it as we get closer.
Okay, Dinesh, take care, brother. God bless you.
Thank you.
Yep.